Hey everyone, it is George Couros. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovator's Mindset I don't even know how to say the word podcast anymore. The Innovator's Mindset podcast. I'm very excited that you're here today, and I appreciate your time. And I want to share just a blog post that I'd written. I'm gonna actually read it to you, but I'm gonna kind of maybe do some of the behind the scenes and why it's important. You can actually see the entire blog post in the link down below. And I want to share this with you because I remember distinctly around this time last year, I was running a 10K race in my hometown of Orlando, Florida. And when I was running it, I was dealing with an injury a few weeks prior, and I was very determined to run the race. And about 3 or 4K into it, the injury flared up. And it was not pain, it was an injury. And I could tell it was very severe. And I had to make this decision at that moment. Do I continue this race and finish it, knowing my kids will be there and they'll see that, whether I give up or not, or do I quit? Do I just quit and not finish the race? And I was struggling with this, and I thought about it quite a bit in the moment, because there are so many times in my life where I have pushed myself to a point where I can't go the next day, where basically I just struggle so badly, but I have to finish, because in my mind, I got to finish what I've committed to. But there is a time that you can actually do that. And yes, you finish in that moment, but it can actually cause you long-term harm. So the easiest analogy for me, and I share this a little bit in the post, is there is a difference between feeling pain and getting an injury. Feeling pain, you could probably work through. Getting an injury, you can make this worse. And so what you do today could actually make something happen, that you can't do it again in the future. So that's what I had to determine. Now, I actually did finish the race, and I was very proud of it. Way slower than what I had hoped for. But I had to make that decision. And either way, if I knew it was going to hey, this is going to make this injury way worse, and I won't be able to run for probably 6 months to a year, then I'm not going to finish it. But I'm I can probably get through this. So I kind of, I tested it out. But I think as I get older, I've learned, quitting sometimes is the best thing you can do so you can go again tomorrow. And sometimes when you stick with things, that's when long-term you can't keep going. So there is a connection. But in the post, I didn't just share about that. I shared about a message that I received, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And the title of the post is "Keep Going or Step Back: Finding the Fine Line Between Resilience and Risk." And so I wrote about this after a run. And this is what I share. It is late on a Sunday evening, and I'm having the worst day. Part of it is being tired, maybe a wee bit hangry, and just overwhelmed with life. But mostly it was because my morning started with a planned long run, and I had to cut it short due to the excessive heat and running out of fluid. The embarrassing phone call I have to make for my family to pick me up from the side of the road is something that they appreciate, knowing I'm safe. Over the last few years, I've learned that it's essential to always follow through on commitments, unless doing so would harm your long-term interests. Here are a few examples of when you persevere and when you give up. You keep going when you commit to exercise, but you feel pain. You quit when you are injured or could be, and long-term damage is inevitable. You keep going when a job you're passionate about gets tough. You quit when a job that you're committed to is going to do long-term damage to your mental health, your relationships, and seemingly has no care for you as a human being. You keep going with a friendship that has served you for a long time, and you are going through a rough patch. You quit a friendship when you realize that person would rather see you fail than succeed. Of course, the above is simplistic with no regard for the history or goals, but in short, something being hard is not a reason to quit. But sticking with the impossible and causing long-term damage is the fine line you can cross between resiliency and stupidity. So this is not just about running. I'm sure you can kind of figure that out as well. There are times where I have had jobs where I felt, hey, I committed to this, I'm going to do this, But I started to realize if I stick with this, yeah, I've kind of kept my word, but long term, it's going to do damage to me. And the people that maybe have hired me, who are my bosses, they're going to replace me and they're not going to care as long as they got someone to fill in that job. And so we sometimes give so much of ourselves to people who won't give back to us. And so maybe you can call it quitting, maybe call it redirection, change of balance. But if it's going to cause you long term, I don't think I've ever said this, in a podcast or on video. There are still, I have nightmares about jobs that I'm working at that place and I work up. There are two things I have nightmares about. Jobs I used to work at and screwing up at a keynote that my technology doesn't work. Those are the two nightmares I have that I wake up terrified all the time. So I just wanted to share that perspective. It's not just about exercise. And by the way, I know, hey, I could have kept running on this day, but it could have been, something really bad happened. So continuing on with the post. Sticking with my run today in the hot Florida sun with no access to fluids would have crossed that line. But even when you know you did the right thing by quitting something that will either no longer serve you or possibly hurt you, there is still that feeling of guilt. What if I kept going? What if I went one more day? What if I tried an alternative path? Some are all those things you could pop into your mind. And even when you knew you did the right thing, the pain of feeling like you quit for the wrong reasons can still sit there. So as I'm moping around my house, which is better than being laid up in bed from being injured or severely dehydrated, and then I receive this unexpected message through a DM on Instagram. I also received it on X as well. This person really wanted me to know this, and I really appreciate it. So here's the message I received. George, I'm at a conference, and we were told to text a person who helped me get us to this point in our career. You likely may not remember me, but years ago when I was a principal at blah, 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 you said, blah, 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 you've got something really special as a leader, and you need to share it on a greater scale. I've never forgotten it, and it motivates me often. Thank you. So here I am feeling like, how unaccomplished I am, how much I've failed. And then I get this message reminding me that I'm making an impact. And weirdly enough, and I didn't write this in the post, if I didn't quit some of those jobs, I would have never been in that circumstance to share that with that person. I would have never been doing the work that I'm doing today. And so sometimes quitting is the best thing you can do for yourself long term. And it really made a difference. Continuing on. Strangely enough, I did remember that interaction. And when it was brought to my attention, I could vividly picture it. What I didn't know was the extent of the impact. That principal is now a superintendent, and after looking her up, I found that she has inspired many with her work. But I had no idea that my words were even a blip in her trajectory. Quick plug. I highly recommend the book Because of a Teacher, not only because I wrote it, but it is a reminder. Sometimes, I know that many teachers, people involved in education listen to this podcast. The reason that book was written is because there are so many people who you have impacted that you have no idea. And it is an ode to that, to make sure you have that reminder. And so this person, I hope that I've done this more often than not. I know I've said things that have totally wrecked people, and we all have, to be honest with you. But I highly recommend the book. I'll link it down below as well. It will remind you of your impact. Continuing on, the irony of the story is that my words were my words that day inspired her to keep going. But her words back to me years later helped me understand that it was okay to quit today, so that I could try again tomorrow. As I've shared many times, a single interaction with a colleague or student can change their trajectory forever. It might inspire them to keep going in that moment, find another path, or quit something they know no longer serves them today to pursue something better tomorrow. Either way, if you think it and it can make someone's day better, make it better. A kind word planted today can help someone take the next step or the right step back, and that can blossom into something remarkable in the future. So the reason I share this all with you is I was thinking about someone in particular, and I won't share her name, but I thought about her, and I didn't want to share this story with her name without permission, but I'll give you kind of like a vague response to it. I was speaking at a conference, and I remember pulling someone up and talking to her, and I said to her, in front of everybody, you are going to have such an impact on this world. I can tell your vibe right away. And what I didn't know is that she was feeling very dejected in her work, and she actually ended up quitting. She ended up quitting her job and going to a new place. And what's interesting is I've seen her flourish, and I've seen her after then. And she told me, she goes, without you, I would have never quit. I would have never quit. I didn't feel valued. I knew this wasn't a good place for me. And you gave me the courage to realize how much of an impact I have. So weirdly enough, sometimes that word of appreciation, that inspirational word, kind of gives permission to someone to say, hey, you deserve better. What you're going through right now is not what you could have, because you have so much potential. And someone else seeing that might not just get you keep going in whatever you're pursuing, but it also might, I know this sounds weird, might inspire you to quit something you shouldn't be doing. And that comment from that superintendent really said, hey, it was okay you quit today, George. It was totally okay you quit, because if you kept going, you might not go again tomorrow. And that's something I think about all the time is, some of the things that do no longer serve us, when we stick with them, you're actually taking your gifts away from the world in many circumstances. Now, I don't want mass quitting because of this podcast or anything like that, but it's just a reminder that, continuing to do things that hurt you long-term and stick with them is that fine line between, resiliency and stupidity. And if you stick with something that, might help others, but does not help you, you eventually will not be able to help others either. If you can't help yourself, make sure you take care of yourself, because when you have that opportunity, when you have the opportunity to quit something that no longer serves you, you have an opportunity to do something and start something new that can make such an impact on the world. And I'm reminded by that because of these incredible superintendents, this incredible leader that I met years ago, and she has had such an impact, and I continue to follow her work, and I'm so proud of her and the work that she does. But I just want to share that with you all. You can check out the blog post down below, but I also encourage you to check out the book Because of a Teacher, because it's filled with stories of this. That wasn't the intent of this podcast, but I think it'd be, hopefully you got something out of this. But thanks so much for all you do. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.